What up guys, Shuttled here, and today we're going to be doing another guide on today's video. Today's guide is going to be everything Mythic Plus, and in this guide I'm going to be covering 4 main things. The first being how to level up your Mythic Plus level for your Keystone. 2, what changes will happen to your Mythic Plus experience when you level up your Mythic Plus Keystone. 3, how loot works and what loot you're actually going to obtain from Mythic Plus. And 4, some of the bonuses of pushing to higher levels in a Mythic Plus. However, before we get into any of all of those, you need to obtain a Keystone. That's one of the first things you need to do for the ability to be able to do Mythic Plus. So you can do this by going into a Mythic 0 or a Mythic Dungeon, just the normal Mythic, downing the last boss, and upon the death of the last boss, each player in the group is going to get a random dungeon Keystone. Now, this Keystone is going to be level 2 by default from the Mythic 0. And basically it's going to randomly assign itself to a dungeon. You're then going to go to that dungeon and you're going to be able to use that Keystone to gain your Mythic Plus runs and so on through that. But not every player's Keystone is going to be the same. So try to organize within your vent or within your curse or whatever you're using to talk about which dungeons you want to level up first. After you have made your way to the next dungeon, you are going to then want to buff up, flask up, and etc. And then go through any strategy you want to do for this dungeon to help you do it as a speed run. What's going to happen when you start your Mythic Plus through the method I'll go over in a second, is the second you activate your Keystone, you're going to have 10 seconds until that dungeon's timer begins. So I'd recommend doing all of the prep work that you need to do before a dungeon before you enable it to be Mythic Plus. Now, you may be asking, how do I enable it to be Mythic Plus? So the person whose Keystone you're going to be using for that dungeon needs to place it within the font of power and then click activate when the group is ready. From this point forward, this dungeon will then reload, so everyone will have a loading screen. Then from when everyone's loaded in, you're going to have a 10-second timer. Once the timer ends, your Mythic Plus run will begin, and a timer will be on the right side of the screen. And also you will see all of the bosses in the dungeon and also a bar. This bar is the amount of trash you need to kill. Now, you need to fill this bar 100% or you do not complete the Mythic Dungeon. This is so that people aren't just going to skip all of the trash and just blitz through the bosses and do the dungeons in like 5 minutes flat. Now, something which you need to understand, as you go up in levels of Mythic Plus, you are adding a modifier onto the damage and the health of all of the mobs inside the dungeon. It starts with quite low and then goes up to level 10, which is level 100% better than Mythic 0. 100% increase on the health and also the damage done by all of the mobs and all of the bosses. There's a few things you should know about upgrading your Keystone if you're thinking about doing Mythic Plus and you're wanting to push as high as you can in the first couple of weeks. The faster you're able to clear the dungeon, the more upgrade levels you're going to get on your Keystone per dungeon you complete. So say for example, you complete the dungeon with 60% of the allotted time left on the timer. So say for example, it was a 30-minute time dungeon and you had more than 12 minutes remaining at the end of the dungeon when you completed it, you would gain 3 levels on your Keystone. And the same goes down for 40% and 20%. I will put the maths numbers in the description down below if you would like to know. I'll do them for 30-minute dungeons. There is also some 45-minute dungeons, and I believe there's also some shorter ones as well. So yeah. So at the end of the dungeon, you may be asking, what about loot? So at the end of your dungeon, at the end of every Mythic Plus dungeon, you're going to get a cache at the end. The number of caches will depend on how fast you've cleared the dungeon. If, for example, you're upgrading your Keystone for 2 levels, then you will be able to get 2 caches. The first will be the level that you cleared on, and then the next level, and then the next cache will be an appropriate eye level, will have appropriate eye level gear in that cache for the level which you skipped. So say for example, I'm doing first level 2 Mythic Plus, and then we get a 2 times upgrade, so we go to level 4. So the first box that drops off the final boss will be for level 2, equivalent eye level, and the other cache that I get will be for level 3, as I've skipped level 3 and it's same as it scales up. Also, after your weekly reset, which will be a Tuesday for US and a Wednesday for EU, you're going to be able to find a loot cache in your order hall that is going to give you equivalent eye level, which is going to be a lot higher than the mythics you cleared. However, the item level will scale upon the levels that you cleared. I'll put an image on screen now of the item levels in the chest that you're going to get. And this item level cache scales off your, as I said before, your previously cleared, in the previous week, the highest level of Mythic Plus you cleared. Now, the loot maxes out at level 10. So there's, if you want to push higher, then I'll go over that later on in the guide about why you should and the things you get if you do that. Now, something to note for the first week of all of this, every single piece of gear until Mythic Rating comes out has a cap of 850 to drop. Okay? This does not include your first weekly chest because when you have your first weekly chest in your order hall, Mythic Rating will be out, therefore they will have removed the cap on the gear. But for the first week, your caches will only be able, they'll still be able to proc, so you'll still be able to get 870 gear as max, but 850 gear will be the max baseline you'll be able to achieve until the second week when a Mythic Rating is out. If you don't end up beating the timer, you can still finish the dungeon and you will get the gear from that level's cache that you ended up finishing the dungeon on. However, your keystone will become depleted, and this will mean that you will be able to carry on doing this level. So say for example it was level 5 Mythic Plus that you were doing. You'll be able to carry on doing Mythic Plus 5 until you complete it and actually end up getting it within the time limit, but you will not be able to retain loot until you go to level 6, and then you will be able to obtain loot from level 6 and so on. Now, if anyone in your group dies, it will remove 5 seconds from the timer for that Mythic Plus run. Do your best to avoid dying. When you reach level 4 Mythic Plus or higher, you are then going to start unlocking affixes. I'm going to go over these all in order, but first I'm going to explain how affixes work and how they actually apply to the dungeon. An affix is a buff that is applied to a Mythic Plus dungeon. From level 4 to level 6 you have 1 of them, and from level 7 to level 9 you have 2 of them. Then from level 10 onwards there is a third affix applied along with the other 2 which you already have. These are separate, the first one being fortified. This increases the health and the damage done by all trash mobs in the dungeon. The next one is going to be tyrannical. Now this just flips it on itself and does exactly the opposite. This is going to increase all health and damage that boss mobs do. Now before we go over all the affixes that you can get from between level 4 and level 9, I would like to point out that all the affixes will be applied to each level. Mythic Plus will be the same for every single group every single week, as they're on a weekly lockout which Blizzard controls. Every affix is on top of the buff that the enemies get as the Mythic Plus levels increase. I'm going to go over each of the affixes separately. The first one being bolster. When a non-boss enemy dies, the death cry empowers nearby enemies, increasing their maximum health and damage done by 20%. Necrotic. Enemy melee attacks apply a stacking debuff that deals damage and reduces the healing or absorb received. Overflow causes all healing done by the healer spect players to trigger a healing abort on the target proportionate to the amount of overhealing done. This basically means for the amount of overhealing done that player has had, they will not be able to be healed until that amount has been taken in damage. Raging. Non-boss enemies enrage at 30% health, dealing 100% increased damage until defeated. Sanguine. Shortly after death, non-boss enemies will leave a pool of blood on the ground, which will heal enemies and damage players for a percentage of their maximum health. Skittish. Enemies have far less threat generation by tank. Teaming. Teaming adds a couple more trash mobs onto every trash pack inside the dungeon, and also increases the amount of trash you're needed to kill to 100% the bar. Volcanic. Whilst a player is in combat, Enemies will produce a burst of flame that will erupt beneath the feet of distant players. So this will really only affect range. Once you have completed Mythic Plus level 15, you will unlock one of the color variations on your third artifact weapon. That is going to wrap up the end of this video, guys. If you did enjoy this video and it helped you out with your Mythic Plus experience, then make sure to leave me some feedback in the comment section down below. And if you are new to the channel and you would like to see more guides and more World of Warcraft Legion content uploaded on a daily basis, then make sure to be subscribed. Link just below the video. And also I have 2 other awesome videos just coming up on the end cards in just a moment. So if you are not done with watching YouTube today, I'd appreciate if you could check out either one of those videos. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. If you guys would like to see the first games of the season as playing as Demon Hunter Turbo, then make sure to hit the right link. If you would like to see some 2s fun with Shadowy U, then make sure to hit the left link. And I'll see you in the next video.